This should be an interesting life before supercars. I've got Ryan's story for a moment, and I'm really excited about this because, Ryan, your journey towards supercars doesn't have a whole lot to do with motorsport, does it?
No, it's slightly unorthodox. When you look up and down pit lane, you see a group of people who are passionate about motor racing, that's for sure, and I certainly am a member of that club. But they've come through either as mechanics and almost without exception with an ambition to become a race driver themselves, and I know that's certainly the case here. We've got a lot of frustrated race drivers on our payroll, but yeah, in my case it's been a little bit different. They say to make a small fortune in motorsport you've got to start with a big one, and my background prior to entering motorsport and working with Dick Johnson Racing and DJ and Gilly was in political advocacy and in research and political research and working with big data and data analytics. So it's certainly a different entry into the sport we love.
Before I get into that extraordinary side of your background, I just want to chat about Ryan's story, the race fan, as well. Where did that bug start for you, and what were the early races that you used to try and get to?
So I grew up in regional South Australia in a town called Yorktown, which is a couple of 100 kilometres from Adelaide. And back in those days, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship would visit Malala once a year, and I used to go there with my dad every year, pay the $20 to get in the pits and get a photo with the great man, and pay an extra $20 and get to sit in the grandstand there. And that was back when Clem Smith was still with us and ran the facility and was there all the time, and it was really the home of supercars in South Australia, and certainly in between years, in between finishing the Grand Prix in 1995 through to the Adelaide 500 commencing in 1999, that was really our only motor racing outlet in South Australia when it came to the Australian Touring Car Championship. So I used to attend every year as a kid, and then when the Adelaide 500 kicked off, I was very fortunate that my parents bought me tickets to go to that event for my birthday. So that was a bit of a dream come true to attend the inaugural and everyone that subsequently followed.
So as a little kid who loved racing, did you ever want to work in it? Was that ever a choice to go, oh, that's my career path, or did it just move in a completely different direction for you straight away?
Yeah, it was most certainly somewhat fortuitous and not by ambition by any means. I was running my business at the time, and we operated across Australia predominantly with a presence predominantly in Adelaide, then in Melbourne, and then later I ultimately moved to Queensland to support the team. But it was a chance run-in with DJ at the Australian Grand Prix in 2011, where I basically shirt-fronted him, as they say. I had more front than mire at the time, and was I was fairly passionate, a massive race fan, but I had a bit of an ego you couldn't pole vault over as a consequence of what I was doing, and as Mark Scape would say, operating at a very high level in my chosen field. And I shirt-fronted 5-time Australian Touring Car Champion, 3-time Bathurst 1000 winner, and basically said to him, how could this happen? You know, how could the team go from winning the 2010 championship with James Courtney to being in all sorts of strife in 2011? So I wrote a business plan up for the team that allowed for them to build a quantum of financial support working with small and medium businesses like mine. And that grew to me working as a data engineer for the team, and then ultimately within the commercial side and then within the commercial space of the team. And then from the beginning of 2013, I became the head honcho of the place. So it was by accident, I can assure you. It was never the intent to move up to Queensland. I'm delighted that I did. The weather's a little bit better than Melbourne this time of year. But it's certainly, as I said, it's been an unorthodox journey, that's for sure.
Now, Ryan, I don't understand how you could say it's so much an accident, because you're a very planned person and you execute your ideas so well. So how much of that meeting with Dick Johnson at Albert Park that day was planned in your head to the point where you go, all right, if I'm at the back of that garage at that time, I might be able to just run into him?
Well, I had a meeting that same day. So that day actually happened to be the same day as the New South Wales state election. and I'd been based in Sydney for about 9 months working on that, and missed out on election day to go to the Grand Prix, and I had a meeting to attend there that day. And it was quite genuinely a bump into, and like I said, I had more front than mire, and just there was no filter between brain and mouth, and it just came out. And DJ gave me his contact details. I sent him a long-winded email with a business plan in it, and we got to work.
So you mentioned the New South Wales election because your prior life before Supercars was heavily involved with politics, but not that you're out there running for government yourself. Can you explain to us what that role was for so many years?
No, I say to my family and close friends, look, if you ever see my name on a ballot paper, please intervene immediately. So I was very much a behind-the-scenes operator, focusing on campaigning and campaigning tools and strategies, and ensuring that the right messages reached the right people, and that we developed policies that were in the best interests of the state or the country, as however the case may have been. But overall, through a 20-year career, I officially retired from politics in February of this year. And that's 20 years. Like I'm mid-30s at the moment. That was 20 years of paid work in politics. So I was still in high school when I took up my first paid gig, helping to run a campaign. So
can you talk us through what the other role was, the products that you developed that started to get used, and how far spread these products became around the world? Because it's extraordinary stuff that you came up with.
It is. I mean, this was before the term big data was a thing, and people started talking about business analytics and business insights. But one of the things that I particularly focused on was recognising patterns and consistent variables from census data and publicly available data and other data sets, and then applying information that was accrued through traditional research methodologies across similar types of demographics and similar types of groups. And it's those same strategies and that same approach that I've certainly brought to the Shell V-Power racing team and to Dick Johnson Racing, as we work with our partners in business to business and business to consumer strategies.
How old were you when you came up with that?
I was in my teens. My first campaign, just trying to remember. My first campaign that I was very heavily involved with, rather than just handing out how to vote cards, was 2002, state election in South Australia. In the 1998 federal campaign, that was the first campaign where I handed out how to vote cards. 2001, handed out how to vote cards. That was a federal election as well. 2002 state election, had a bigger involvement then, and was a deputy campaign manager for a safe seat, the safe seat in South Australia, and really it blossomed and bloomed from there. But I was very fortunate. I had a lot of people who gave me a chance, and I think that's what anyone really needs in life to get an opportunity is to get a chance to show what they're capable of. And I worked really, really hard, and it's something that I've brought with me again to the team, to showcase to all of the folks who work for us that there are opportunities and career paths within our organisation. And certainly if people have ambition to go beyond racing or beyond potentially our organisation here, to do anything possible to help facilitate that, simply because I'm only here because so many wonderful people offered the same endorsement and the same opportunities to me.
Both your drivers at Dick Johnson Racing had a chance to take their products and services overseas at a young age. Did you get a chance to take what you had created overseas and let it flourish internationally?
Yeah, so I worked on a number of campaigns in the United States, presidential campaigns, midterm campaigns, gubernatorial campaigns, and also in New Zealand as well. So they're the primary areas that I operated in. I think in Australia alone, I think it's over 25 state and federal elections that I've been involved with, and perhaps 30, 35 in total through the course of my career.
Politics and supercars can get pretty crazy. Is there much of a parallel between the politics that you've seen in America and on a national scale in Australia to what we see in pit lane?
Well, I can assure you from first-hand personal experience, having worked with Prime Ministers, having met and worked with presidents, that there's more politics in motor racing and motorsport than there is in politics. And I can say that with some authority.
I want to shine a light on the amazing work that you do with charities as well, because I think sometimes it can get overlooked a little bit. Why did you choose to go down that pathway, particularly working with sick kids, because it takes a pretty big heart to be able to do that?
Well, charity and philanthropy has always been important to me, and we have such a wonderful platform with the Repco Supercars Championship and with the Shell V-Power racing team in particular. I mean, we have around 1.25 million fans in Australia alone. That's an incredible platform, and I've always felt that there's a moral responsibility on me as the executive chairman of the business and as a co-owner with Dick in the business to use the platform that we have for good and to reach out to our supporters, do everything we can to raise awareness, raise funds and provide support networks for those who need it most. And we're incredibly fortunate that Supercars fans are the most generous supporters you could ever possibly hope to have. And we've been able to raise millions of dollars year on year in the time that I've been running the race team. We previously had an unofficial policy to raise $1 million per annum, and this year to date, we've exceeded that as an official policy. We're well in excess of $1.5 million that we've helped raise for charity. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of, but really whilst we've helped facilitate that, and I've dug in my own pocket as well, that really does come down to our supporters and the fact that they believe in what we're doing. They see that we're genuine in terms of what we're trying to do and the awareness that we're trying to raise. So for example, with Camp Quality, we worked with our major partner Shell V-Power to donate to those folks a car that stick it up like a race car to take sick kids around in. It's a real experience for those kids. And with the Prostate Cancer Foundation, who we've started working with this year, we've worked with those folks to raise a good amount of money and also to raise awareness, because a core part of the Supercars key demographic is precisely the people who need to get PSA tested and talk to their GP about prostate cancer. So it's not just raising funds like I mentioned, it's also raising awareness and creating unique opportunities for these people. And most recently in Darwin, we ran an Indigenous livery on our cars, and that was in support of Racing Together in particular, and all of our Indigenous friends and First Nations people. I'm very fortunate to be a director of the Racing Together organisation, and it's a wonderful, wonderful group of people, a wonderful group of young kids, and it's all about creating opportunities for Indigenous youngsters in motorsport and in STEM, in science, technology, education and maths, and that's something we're very passionate about too. So to be able to have achieved that, and that livery in Darwin was something very special, and I can't wait for the model car to come out, and that'll take pride of place in my office. It's one of the best looking liveries I think we've ever seen. But that same weekend we had a number of Camp Quality families come through the garage, and we supplied I think over 50 tickets in all to a number of families up there to support that group as well. So we try to do everything we can to integrate with the charities that we support, and we're always open to seeking out new opportunities that where we can use the platform that we have, where we can leverage the tremendous generosity of our supporters to look after these groups and to help them wherever possible.
It's wonderful work that you're doing off the racetrack, mate. Well done. You're probably the world's most overqualified data engineer for the small time that you had the headphones on. I
can assure you, Chad, I was no good as a data engineer. I took great relish in helping with strategy later down the line, but what became apparent when I first became involved was that my services were probably better spent and better utilised within the commercial side of the business than the engineering side. And certainly through 2013 and 2014, in the lead up to Penske joining us, we focused more so on the business and the health of the business at the expense of our competitiveness on track. And all that with a win in 2013 at Ipswich with Chaz Mostert behind the wheel. That was an incredible moment. But we worked really hard to restore the business, to get it to a state of solid health, to where someone like Roger Penske would be prepared to invest in not only the sport of supercars, but in particular our team.
Can you imagine how many fans are glad that you did that as well? Just from not a business point of view, but just how many fans rely on that team to be on track?
It's never far from our mind that we're the people's team. From hitting the rock in 1980 to the donations that flowed into Channel 7, matched dollar for dollar by Ford and Edsel Ford, who was out here at the time as the marketing boss of Ford. We completely absorbed, or DJR then completely absorbed what was left of Ford's marketing budget for that year. Such was the level of public support and public outreach to all of the local 7 stations right across the country to donate to this bloke who put everything on the line to go racing. So we started off as the people's team, and to me we still are very much the people's team, and that's a big motivator behind supporting a lot of these non-profits and charities. It's all about giving back.
I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to whatever the next chapter is for the team, mate. It's been really good to chat on your very different life before supercars.
Thanks, Chad.